Manufacturing is evolving fast. Are you keeping up? I'm Justin Schnorr, and on Manufacturing Momentum, I talk with industry leaders, innovators, and problem solvers about the tech, trends, and strategies shaping the future of manufacturing. No fluff, just real conversations to help you stay ahead. Let's get after it.
Hi there.
Hey, Samantha, how's it going?
It's going zoo.
Now, you're a co-founder of, oh, and then forgive me, how do you pronounce the company name? I'm sure you get that a lot.
Oh, no worries. We call it Re3D, RE3D.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, is it Reed? Is it RE3D? Or so can you tell me a little bit about how you started the company and why and just a little background?
Yeah, we're a little bit of a different deck. We're open source and we're a social enterprise that is spun out of our time volunteering with nonprofits like Engineers Without Borders, NASA Johnson Space Center, in Africa and Central America, Nairobi, and saw an opportunity to support dialogue about fabricating goods on site without being so dependent on aid and outside um, governments and brands. And at the time, there wasn't a kind of centered on 3D printing, but there wasn't a printer that could produce the types of goods they were requesting at the price point they needed. So
Right.
started to share it online, and it got a little bit of a following. And then we got into a program called Startup Chile. It gives you 40K to start or scale your idea in Latin America. And they had a booth in 2013 at South by Southwest. So they agreed to let us exhibit there for free if we built a Kickstarter campaign and launched our product there. And it was funded in one day. And we've continued to take orders and bicycle the money so we don't have an investor. And yeah, we're in over 50 countries.
Yeah, that's amazing. How long
Yeah,
ago was that?
2013.
Okay. So you've been at it a while now.
Yeah, it goes by fast though.
Yeah, I know it. I've been doing work with manufacturing companies since like 2005. So I'm coming up on 20 years now, which feels very weird. Well, I mean, you list on your title as co-founder in Catalyst.
Mhm.
What's kind of the background behind Catalyst as a title as well?
Yeah, I would say I'm like everyone's number two. So I'm just trying to help like keep things going. And the CEO title seemed, especially in the beginning, pretty weird to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just preferred it.
Well, and then you guys also have clients like, okay, I was stalking your site and you have like NASA, you have several colleges, you have Remington, Nokia. But how did you go about getting that business, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so we don't pay for any marketing. Everything's through word of mouth and earned marketing. So there's an opportunity like this just to share a little bit about what we're doing, and we're always happy to do so. We also publish technical papers and present to the scientific community and some of the innovations we're doing, like printing from plastic waste. And then we have done several accelerators that have really amplified us a lot and shared our story and made strategic connections. But now with the age of our company, someone might use our product in college and then go on to their next job and also convince their employer to buy their printer
Yeah,
or yeah, so a lot of it is just word of mouth, just
yeah,
doing
that's
business on a
incredible. That's
handshake.
even more incredible because um, I'm just thinking about the meeting I had yesterday with a sales and marketing manager, also of a 3D metal printing company, and
Mm-hmm.
may also be at the same trade show that you're going to. Um, but the dichotomy of what everything they do on the sales and marketing side, and then what you guys do from kind of the social responsibility
Mm-hmm.
aspect, just fully leaning on the social side of it is, and
Mm-hmm.
just relying on that. That is pretty insane. Dare I say, unheard of.
Yeah, it's a little unique, but not having an investor keeps us scrappy and keeps us accountable to our customers and those sales and those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw something that for every 100 gigabytes you sell, you donate one as well.
Yeah, we call it the Giga Prize. We just concluded one on New Year's. So a
Nice.
group called Ortho Additive in um, in South Africa. Ortho Additive Africa, excuse me, in South Africa is going to be getting a printer, which is really cool.
And about how many of those have you given away over the
Oh, we've only done 8.
decade?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, only? Yeah, that's quite a bit. Um, yeah, I don't think many people are giving away some of their products, so that's super cool.
Yeah, it's an honor for us.
Yeah. And do you mind, could I ask you a little bit about sales as well?
Sure.
Yeah, how did you guys do in 2024, and then what are your goals in 2025?
Yeah, we've had unprecedented growth the last couple years, both from revenue and then also profitability. There's a lot of interest in what we do due to the fact that we manufacture them ourselves. A lot of people outsource that here in the United States, and there's a trend right now towards nearshoring or friendshoring. And then our printer, like they can print from waste, has a dual use application because it can take materials that aren't available in a rope-like filament feedstock, softer materials, loaded materials, and so that's expanded the customer base for that machine as well.
Yeah, yeah. You say nearshoring. I assume that's doing everything stateside versus.
Yeah, or with in Canada or Mexico. Mm-hmm.
Mhm, mhm. And has tariffs affected any of your business or any specific industries or?
Um, I think everyone's in a wait and see in manufacturing right now because we manufacture them ourselves and we've been trying to work for a long time to shorten our supply chain. We're not impacted by it.
Yeah, very cool. And then is there any industries, it looks like you serve a ton of different industries.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any industry in 2025 or industries that you're super focused on?
No, we're pretty broad based. We don't put our eggs in one basket. And honestly, with lead times, we're always chasing our tail as we scale up to try to reduce lead time. So a lot of it will still just be like in receive mode until we can drop ship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you guys operate with the model, um, the reward for good work is more work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of a victim of our own success. But we just had a pretty significant relocation and we're doing renovations to our building. So we're kind of limited in how much demand we can support without having insane lead times. So the priority right now is like power and HVAC and adjoining our buildings and getting signage up and making sure we have desk space for everyone. And we're hiring pretty aggressively.
Yeah.
So kind of doubling down on that, and then we'll probably pivot it maybe in the longer term to more concerted efforts. But our focus right now is really building our team as technical experts, getting the word out, publishing, and then doing a lot of how procurement occurs at scale usually is an invited demonstration and supporting those with strategics in the short to midterm.
And are you handling all of that you just said? Because that's a lot of stuff. Both
I
the
mean, we're
project,
we're a really small team. That's why we're hiring.
I guess the reason I get into these is obviously um, I want to share content from people actually doing manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some of this. I've been working, as I said, with manufacturing companies for a couple decades now and tried to create content, but nothing of it feels as interesting as hearing directly from people
Sure.
actually doing the manufacturing. It makes way more compelling content. Now, that being said, there was someone in your industry that was looking to start up. Was there any advice that you would give them, that you wish you would have had in 2013 when you started this up?
Yeah, I two things. I think one, I find I'm always nostalgic for moments I never just um, fully appreciated at the time as things are moving so fast.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have taken the moment just to like celebrate and lean into those moments. And then secondly, I would say I think it's okay to be ugly because if you look at our first Kickstarter campaign, the wires are on the electrical box is on the ground, and we didn't pay for marketing like we then either, and what was cool is like we designed it for a village in Muganero and no one in Rwanda backed the campaign. It was, you know, uh, universities and hospitals and big brands who were setting up Kickstarter accounts to buy it. And those individuals were giving us feedback. So I would say, you know, if we had just held on to it and tried to make it as pretty as we thought it could be and engineered it for our own desires or who we thought that initial customer was, we would have missed the opportunity to have all that capital outplay to invest back in the company and to make the printer what it is today. So I think it's really important just to constantly be sharing, you know, being candid about, you know, where things are and where you see them going, and then just humble enough to let the community drive and refine the product to meet their demand.
Nice. So yeah, just get it out there.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be pretty. I think a lot of times too in hardware, like people will do renderings and, you know, they're taking the best of and whatnot, and that, you know, ultimately might create a little bit of distrust too with the customer or skepticism. So I think it serves you well, depending on your technology, just to, especially like 3D printing, everyone knows they're still evolving and they've got a long way to go.
Right.
Just to get it out in the hands of potential users.
Right. So, I mean, you're very much, even today, it seems like you're very much in the thick of it. 5 years from now, you want to be sitting, um, you know, just selling 3D printers from Costa Rica, or, you know, is there like a big dream that you have for yourself, or RE3D?
Oh, we don't have an exit strategy. We don't have an investor, so we don't have those pressures. You know, I'm always trying to think about like, how do I create 500 jobs in 5 years through second and third offsets? How do I enable people to have economic independence? What are the metrics we're going to use to measure that? How can we definitely have roadmaps around certain feature development of the machines that we think are needed to make it more accessible, especially for less skilled or people who aren't skilled in our industry. And then in terms of the garbage, have a lot of lofty goals around certain types of waste streams, particularly polyolefins, and being able to print, you know, we have throughput goals and ideas around point of need manufacturing and how we allow more accessibility around repurposing.
I mean, you guys are all truly all about social responsibility. So, like the machines themselves fill a need in our particular location. You want to create jobs, no exit strategy. It's really just about serving the greater good of all people.
I mean, I probably get the same emails you do 3 to 5 times a day, or people are trying to buy us. But yeah, I don't. If we ever work so hard to have the freedom that we have right now,
Right.
but I do want to continue to build the A team that's helping others like accomplish their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. Well, I mean, is there anyone, I talk to many manufacturers and people in different roles through the manufacturing industry. Can I connect you with anyone or keep an eye out? Are you looking for specific skilled talent in any
I
position?
need a machinist who wants to, like a senior machinist, because I want to stand up an apprenticeship program with a community college.
Okay.
So I'd like I think we're going to hire 4 people in the next week, but the priority role after those 4 will definitely be machinist with significant expertise and knows our type of CNC, knows our tooling, really interested in 3D printing, wants to work at a social enterprise, wants to come to work every day in Austin.
Yeah. Which is not a bad place to be.
Yeah. Yes. If you know of anyone, I think that is going to be the priority role that we'll need to fill.
Yeah. You say it
Um,
no so nonchalantly, like we're going to fill 4 positions in the next weeks.
yeah, no, we're really blessed in that. And then, yeah, there's certain congressmen that I'm looking for intros to. So depending on like what your bench looks like in DC, um, you know, whether it's standards, conversations right now in advanced manufacturing and workforce development. You know, we've kind of seen as everyone else's job, and I'm realizing we really need a seat at the table
Yeah.
as some of really critical decisions are being made. And yeah, so we're looking to connect with congressmen and appropriations and budget, and to kind of share our 2 cents on where we think the opportunity is.
So let's say you get that meeting. Is that you sitting at that table having those discussions?
It could be, yeah, myself or the organizations that represent manufacturers like myself,
Yeah.
like manufacturing institutes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amazing.
We give tours. So, if someone that's listening to your podcast wants to come by virtually or in person and see how 3D printers are made and some of the projects we're working on, they're welcome to anytime.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I want to go do the tour next time I'm
You
in
should. It's
Austin.
pretty cool. Our new shop is right across from the airport.
Oh,
So like
amazing.
literally as you did switch back to go into the city, you would drive right past it.
And if you find yourself up here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for some odd reason, look me up. Thank you so much for your time.